Hello, I'm EnterElysium and welcome to Kerbal Space Program 101. So, a number of you maybe watched my channel quite a while, you might be familiar with Kerbal Space Program, others of you may be just coming to it for the first time, especially if it's 1.0 release, it's full access release, not early access, it's actually out. And maybe you're wondering, how to really get into it. Perhaps you haven't gone to orbit before, perhaps you haven't actually left Kerbin, perhaps you've just stayed indoors. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over the very basics and we're going to go to orbit. And I'm going to talk about it from a very basic, sort of bottom up. We're going to talk about the very, very basics of the game. So, we're going to hit Start Game. Hello, Val. We're going to go for a Start New. And what you need to do is you need to hit Sandbox. Bam. These are career mode type things. Science is a halfway house. Career mode is a campaign. Campaign is you have to unlock new parts of science. You have to go get science by doing experiments. You also have to buy parts for each rocket with funds. And you have to upgrade your buildings with funds as well. Science is a halfway house. You don't have to worry about funds. You just have to worry about the science. You unlock stuff. It's kind of cool. But the purpose of this, we're not talking about the progression system. We're talking about the actual mechanics. So we're going to hit Sandbox and we're going to go Start. I believe I actually have one already created for this. EnterElysium 101, there we go. And we'll just grab that one. Once you've created the game and you've entered your new save, you will be encountering the Space Center. Welcome to the Space Center. This is where you will launch all your missions from. So today we're only going to focus about one thing here. We've got a lot of buildings, we're just going to focus on one, and this is the launch pad over here. This is where you launch all your rockets. So let us just click on it, and then you'll get to select your rockets. So by now, if you've just started the game, all of these will be available and there'll be none others. These are all stock, so these come with the game, just to give you an idea of what spacecraft look like, what you can build them like, how they work. What we're going to do is we're just going to pick the Kerbal X. So the Kerbal X is a spacecraft that's been in the game for quite a while. It's been in there quite a while, and it's not perfect. It does have problems, given that there are a lot of new things in the game now that it hasn't been updated for. This craft is a little bit old, and we'll come to those when we have them. It's also not the most simple of craft. It's actually got a slightly more complicated design, so I won't be talking about it from a design perspective per se, but it suits our purposes. It's got enough fuel to get to orbit, and it's actually, I think, the only craft here which has got plenty of fuel, enough to get to orbit, and is a traditional rocket. So here you get to be able to select your little craft. Here you get to view your craft. Here you get to change around your crew, so we can take Jeb out and we can put Valentina in. You can also use buttons on the side to do that. All cool. Right, up here you have the launch button, edit button. You can edit the rocket if you want. We're not gonna. We're just gonna launch. And of course you can close. We're gonna go launch straight into the pad. And then you'll be loading up the flight scene. So, ta-da! Here's our rocket. So, welcome. Hold right mouse and move the mouse to pan around. You can also hold middle mouse to be able to move the camera. Center that by clicking again twice. And this is our space center, and there's the sun. So the sun is actually just about to start setting now. The sun goes down over there and it rises over there. This is the east, and this is thus the west, and that will be north over there. So this is kind of important to know. Just from a sheer mechanical standpoint, Kerbin, which is the planet we're on, by the way, is very much like Earth. It's just a little bit smaller. It rotates the same way. The sun rises up in the east, it goes down in the west, and this means something very important for us. If we hit M to go to the map screen, hello there, you can see that we are here, you can see that we're actually getting towards darkness. We're going to be taking up over the sea, so this is the way you want to go up. Every time you want to go up into orbit for an equatorial orbit, that is an orbit around the equator, you want to go up over the sea. Now the reason for this is because the planet's already rotating in that direction. If you go with the planet, you actually get a kick start from the planet. If you go the opposite direction, you've got to make up that lost speed. You're actually getting a kickstart from the velocity the planet is imparting on you. You're actually getting a boost, so that's why you want to be able to go up over the sea pretty much every time. There are very few reasons to go up any other way, although, sometimes you may want to. So, we're just going to get down to it. So, just talking about a few simple controls, for those of you who don't know them. WASD, the normal movement controls, determine how your rocket moves, so D will pitch us that way. A will pitch us that way. W, S. Well, that's actually pitch, and that would be yaw, strictly, but whatever. Q and E will do roll, although we don't need to use them at the moment. And if you notice, actually, when I use D, you can notice down here, our yaw indicator is telling us that we are moving. So D, E, D, D, A, D, A. If we use W, pitch, S. There you go. And we can use Q and E for the same thing. So, that's how you move the rocket. Remember that the controls are bound to the rocket, not to the camera. So if we turn our camera around, controls are still the same. So you've got to bear in mind which way a rocket is pointing. And for this reason, we have the Nav Ball down here. So the Nav Ball is mainly what you want to focus on when you're flying. Don't try and really fly by focusing on the rocket. Try and fly by focusing on the Nav Ball. So here we have a north line. We have our rocket here. We can see that we actually want to be going, over the sea. So we'll want to be going that way. And this will be what we're trying to fly by. So just bear that in mind. We'll get around to that as we fly. This is your throttle here. Currently the marker's in half plays. You can do shift to make it go up. Control to make it go down. For the most time you want it at 100%. There are occasions when you want it lower, but for now we're just going to stick to 100%. You can use X to be able to put it on 0, and you can use Z to put it on 100%. Otherwise you can use shift and control to make it go up and down. We'll want to hit T. This is very important. Watch the light. This brings up the SAS, which is the Stability Assistance System, I believe. This will allow you to get a bit more control of your rocket. What it does is it stops your rocket spinning. Effectively, if you take your hands off the controls, without SAS on, your rocket would continue to spin. With SAS on, though, it kind of goes, okay, you want me to stop, and it stops the rocket. Or at least it tries to. So you kind of want that on for now. Make sure that light is on. It's very important. Over here we have our staging. So every time we press spacebar, a stage will activate. So here we have our engines. When you press spacebar, these are going to activate. Cool. Next, you press spacebar again. These will activate the launch clamps. These currently hold us to the ground, so we'll need to hit the spacebar twice to press the engines and then to get rid of the launch clamps so we can take off. Then we hit spacebar again. We'll dump the side boosters, side boosters, side boosters. Then it'll be dump the lower stage, spacebar for the top stage, then dump the top stage, and then we'll finally be able to open the parachute. Okay, I'm going to go through this rather fast. If you need to go back, feel free to click back in the video and rewatch something. So we're just going to go straight up into this little orbit we're planning. We're planning to go over there. So as soon as the launch, I want to be able to press D, but I also want to just go up a little bit. Now, don't turn too fast. This is very important. Do not turn too fast or you will end up flipping out because of the drag imparted on you. And also, don't turn too late, otherwise you might have some issues. So we're going to turn over nice and gently. Well, effectively, we're trying to do a nice, smooth curve. Okay? It's important because right now, we're in the lower atmosphere, there's a lot more drag. As we get into the higher atmosphere, less pressure, less drag, you can turn a little bit more. So, when you're ready, make sure your shift is to max, so we've got throttle on max, or you can press Z to make sure you're there. T to make sure the stability assistance system is on. And then, all you have to do is hit space twice, once for the engines and once for the launch clamps. So, 3, 2, 1. And we're going to go a little bit over to the side. So gently, there you can see me nudging over to the side. You can see from here, I actually got slightly off the centre of the ball. Now, the centre of the ball is directly up. We just want to go a little bit over the ocean. Now, you can tell here, by the way, that we've emptied the fuel in these two boosters. That means I'm going to hit shift to eject those boosters. There we go. Those boosters are away. Try not to drop them on top of the buildings because that can cause them to explode. That could be nasty. And we're going up over to sea. So I'm just going to keep tilting a little bit more. More boosters are gone. You see they're running out of fuel, it tells us there. I'm not going to go into reason why this is. It's actually a slightly more complicated rocket design. So I'm just going to leave this be. Just keep going over slightly. We're at about 8,000 meters now. The important thing that we're aiming for at the moment is 70,000 meters. The Kerbin's atmosphere ends at just shy of 70,000 meters. So, boosters again. Okay, we're down to our main stage then. Kerbin's atmosphere ends at about 70,000 meters, so 70 kilometers. This is a very important milestone because it means that you can actually be in orbit. Orbit is defined by being able to go around the planet and not be in the atmosphere, and that is very important for a couple of reasons, particularly because of time warp, but also because it means you won't be, slowed down. Your orbit will always be up there, and you can leave the vessel up there, although the Kerbals might get a fair bit bored. Your Kerbals, by the way, are your intrepid astronauts. They live on this planet, and they do crazy amounts of science and some terrible engineering. So by now, I'm turned over pretty hard. I'm probably turned over a bit more than I need to be. But let's go to the map screen. So press M to go to map screen, and you can see that we have our apoapse. Now, if we press the delete or period key on the number pad, we can bring this up. There we go, the nav ball in the map screen allows you to control. Otherwise, you won't be able to control yourself. So I'm going to go to about 75, and then I'm going to cut my throttle. So there we go, 75. I've cut my throttle with X, and we're going to go up to about 75. So, we are now going for what is a suborbital trajectory, i.e. we're going into space and then we're coming back down. Apoapse, let's talk about apoapse. We're on our way there. If we go back to the main view, by the way, you'll see that we're up to almost 50 kilometers. And we're almost in space. It was a bit dark. Bye-bye, KSC. So, let's talk about apoapse. What apoapse is, it is the point at which your orbit, or at least your orbital path, is furthest from its center point, which will, of course, be the planet in Kerbal Space Program. So our center point is in here somewhere, and this is the orbit we're taking. It's actually inside the planet for most of it, which is why it's not an orbit. what we need to do is we need to make sure the periaps, which is the opposite, which is the lowest point in the orbit, is also outside the atmosphere. So we're aiming to get our periaps above 70 and our apoaps above 70. Apoaps is already there. So what we're going to do is we're going to burn to make the periaps go up. Now, the best times to burn, mathematically speaking, the best times to burn are always at extremes. So if you're trying to do one thing, you try to burn an extreme. If you're trying to do nothing, you want to kind of burn an extreme, because that's how you get the most efficiency. So we can burn now to be able to circularize. I'm going to wait until we get to apoaps, or just beforehand. So what we want to do is you want to do a burn to push the periaps up. So if we burn prograde, that is to say, forwards, along our velocity vector, which is this little green thing here. So let's just aim ourselves a bit. Prograde. There is also retrograde marker, which is the opposite, and we'll come to that later. We will be able to burn and impart more orbital speed. We need to get our orbital speed a little bit above 2 kilometers, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Don't fill your heads with too many numbers. We're just going to focus on that 70-kilometer mark for the atmosphere. So here we go. We're almost at apoaps. I'm going to start burning. And there you go. You can see that our orbital path is starting to move. So the aim here is, I'm actually going to aim a little bit up, is to try and get a circularized orbit. Now, I've actually gone a little bit past my apoaps, I think. So I'm just burning a little bit up, which is a good solution. Oh, there we go. Down a bit, up a bit. And you see that our orbital path is moving quite nicely. So if you want to move your periaps, by the way, burn apoaps, because it's the opposite. It's the best way to get efficiency. Now, I'm going to just kill off my throttle for a minute, and you see that we have an orbit. It's not perfect. It's 74 by 85. It's not perfect, but that is an orbit. We're not going to trouble ourselves with trying to make it any better or perfect or exactly, precisely equal. We're just going to satisfy ourselves that we have got now an orbit, and that is a perfectly good solution to what we're aiming for today. Since this is a very basic tutorial, we're focusing on the very basics right now. So here is our lovely little vessel. You can't see it very well. It's in the dark. Well, sort of. Hello, Moon. We're coming for you later. That'll be a later tutorial. But yeah, this is our spacecraft. It is now in space. You are now orbiting. The requirements for the orbit are, of course, above 70 kilometers. We are both above 70 kilometers, and we're fairly low. So that means we'll be orbiting pretty damn fast. So I'm actually going to start doing some time warping, because you can't really see much in the dark, so it wouldn't be really teaching you much. Time warp is another important thing of KSC. Anytime you are outside of the atmosphere, and bear in mind that several planets have atmospheres in KSP, you can use time warp. You can always use time warp inside the atmosphere, although we should strictly call that physics warp. So, time warp. Time warp, you use the period key to speed up time, and you can use the comma key to slow down time. The reason this works is because it goes, you're in space, there's nothing acting on your craft, we're going to turn off physics. So it turns off physics, and then you can just accelerate, because it's not doing any complicated physics calculations, so time just accelerates. Inside atmosphere, you have a different thing. What you have is physics warp, which just starts to approximate physics. It doesn't do the calculations as accurately, and with large craft, that can cause issues. So just be warned if you're doing physics warp. But on the whole, it's fine, especially for beginner craft. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of time warping. So I'm going to press the period key, and we're going to get ourselves some time warp on. So we go to it goes to 10, I believe, and then it goes to 50, and then it goes to 100. You can't do some time warps below certain heights, so it's a shame we can't go more than 50 right now. But oh well. And we're going to go to, I believe, when it just starts getting light, and you can see some lovely light on our vessel. So there we go. We're in the sun. There we go. Lovely. By the way, if at any point you want to change your camera view, you can do so using V. And if you, of course, want to look inside, you can press C to do so. So we're looking around inside the capsule, and you can go out. If we go back inside, you can also press V inside the capsule to be able to change the Kerbal you're looking through. So this is a different view. You can see there are some lovely windows. You can see some lovely instruments. In theory, you could fly by instruments, although it would be very difficult. Hello. Let's go out of this view. You can also, by the way, use IVA, so that's inter-vehicle activity or something, for that. And we're not going to bother ourselves with that right now. We're just going to go down and we're going to land. So we need to burn retrograde. So much like we did burning prograde, we're going to burn retrograde. Now, of course, the most efficient way to do this would be to burn at apoaps, because you're wanting to decrease your periaps. It's the lowest of the planet, you might as well make it lower. We're not going to bother with efficiency. We're just going to burn retrograde here. So you can see that this is actually the retrograde marker. It has a little X inside it. I don't know if you can see. It's a tiny bit different. There you go. You can see a tiny little X there maybe. I don't know if that comes through on YouTube. But importantly, I know that we're going into the light, and I need to be burning away from the sun, so I know that this is the retrograde marker. So I'm going to align myself with it. And by the way, if you need to stop yourself rotating and you're rotating too much, just do a little time warp. Because it turns off physics, you stop rotating. It's a little bit of a trick there. And what we're going to do is we're going to burn. So go to the map screen, and you can see that our periaps is dropping. Now we're in the atmosphere, and if we kept this going, and we just went like this now and stopped burning, we would end up going through the atmosphere, we'd slow down, our orbit would go lower, and then we come out, probably, and we keep doing that until we ended up actually with a low enough orbit that would actually just slow down enough to be able to hit the ground. I'm just going to keep burning and get us down. Ooh, where? Go for a shallow entry. There we go. So I'm going to go for that. The likelihood here is that we're not actually going to land here, partly because the planet orbits. So the planet rotates. The planet rotates under us. That's going to change that. But most importantly, as soon as we get really deep into the atmosphere especially, we're going to have a lot of friction, and this is going to cause us to slow down. So instead of going around like that, which is the prediction if we didn't have any drag or ever, we're just going to end up a lot shorter. I think we might end up in the desert. That's my guess. So, out of map view. There's nothing else to do now. What I will do, however, is I'm going to dump the lower stages. We have a lot of fuel left. This craft is kind of designed for going a little bit further than orbit. But since it's got plenty of fuel, it's a better beginner one. At least you've got some leniency on that one. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift to eject this lower stage. And I'm going to just press Shift again, because I do not need this stage either. This stage has another engine and has another load of fuel. I don't need it. So let's activate it once. Come on. And again. There we go, it's ejected. So all we've got left is the crew capsule and the parachute. Very important, we need a parachute. My god, we need a parachute. Now, here is what I'm going to just say about this craft. It was designed a long time ago, and it's been a stock craft for a very long while. It doesn't have a heat shield. Now, heat shields are important. When you're coming back into an atmosphere, the atmosphere is going to be rubbing against you like really fast. There's going to be a lot of friction with the atmosphere, and you're going to heat up. Like any friction does, you will cause yourself to heat up. We're going a little bit faster than rubbing your hands together, though, so we're going to experience a lot of heating. This is going to cause the capsule to heat up and probably explode if we don't slow her down. Now, we could do a couple of things to slow down. We could have burned using those rockets. I don't want to focus on doing something like a powered descent. That's what you call a powered descent, being able to slow yourself down using rockets. And we're not going to use powered descent. It's just a little bit beyond the scope of this tutorial. Alternatively, you can have a heat shield, and you can just ride yourself back into the atmosphere on the heat shield. The heat shield will protect you from the heat, and you'll slow down naturally on the atmosphere. We don't have a heat shield. This craft, currently in stock, does not feature a heat shield. It probably should, maybe updated at some point in the future, to have a heat shield like this. In which case, then you don't have to worry about this part. But what we have to do is we have to open our parachute a lot earlier than we'd like. Now, normally I would like to open the parachute about 10 kilometers or less, really. But we're going to have to open it a lot earlier. And this is actually going to be a problem, because we're going to open the parachute while we are kind of heating up and very fast. This can cause the parachute to overheat and melt and burn up, and then death. Which is bad, but I think we're going to be fine because we're not going all that fast. Our orbital speed is only above 2 kilometers. Now, that is very fast, 2 kilometers per second, but we should, in theory, be fine. By set stages. So let's do a time warp till we hit the atmosphere, because it will slow us down when we hit the atmosphere, because it can't do a time warp in atmosphere, it can only do physics warp. There we go. It slows down, we're now in atmosphere. So, just going to orientate ourselves, make sure we're going flat on into the atmosphere. I think we might end up actually... We're not end up in desert, we're going to end up around here. That's going to be awkward. Mountains can be tough to land in. Anyway, I'm going to do a bit of a physics warp now, since I want to demonstrate the physics warp, and actually nothing's going to happen until we get to the lower atmosphere. Remember that the friction increases the lower in the atmosphere you go, because this is really important for more complicated maneuvers on more complicated planets. Pressure increases as you get lower. So pressure is at lowest at sea level. Since there's more air there, because there's more pressure, there is more friction. We're just going to do a bit of a physics warp. So you can see 2, 3, and if you look up here, there's little arrows that are warning us. And if we go again, 4. Are we being eclipsed or something? I swear we've got a shadow on us. Where is that shadow coming from? Oh, we're being eclipsed by our own rocket parts. That's kind of cool. KSP, everybody. It's an amazing game. Hey. Anyway, coming back in, just to make sure a nice bit of a physics warp because I don't want to travel. I'm imagining about 35 kilometers, we'll start to get reentry effects, and that's when we're going to have to start being clever. So coming in now, I'm imagining we're going to be on mountain range, so this is going to make it slightly more complicated. Like me, do not choose to land on a mountain range. Do not do it like me. That would be a very bad idea. Particularly with more complicated craft. With this one, it probably won't matter that much. So, about 10 kilometers, and then we should be hitting ourselves some reentry effects. Notice that they're now speeding up and going past us. They actually went behind us because we took a lower trajectory, and then they're going past us now because we've actually slowed down. So you can see that we're actually already starting to lose our velocity compared to them. Well, compared to them, they're taking a different path, which is why we're actually speeding up, technically. Now we're slowing down again. Anyway, we're into the grasslands. That's good. And here we go. 35 kilometers. I called it. Reentry effects happening. So this will cause our capsule to heat up, and then will eventually kill everyone, and it will explode in a ball of death and fire. We're not going to wait for that. I'm going to wait for it to get a little bit more, and then I'm going to deploy the parachute. Now, normally I don't deploy a parachute like this. I cannot emphasize enough, this is not perfect, but it's because I've chosen a stock vessel just to demonstrate so that you can do the exact same. This is not a perfect design. Stock vessels are by no means the best designed things. This vessel's been in there for a long time without any changes, and that is the issue behind it. So, I'm going to wait a little bit longer. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to deploy the parachute, but it won't open yet because it's not far enough into the atmosphere. There isn't enough air pressure. There isn't enough air for the parachute to be able to catch. So we're just going to have to hope we don't explode before the parachute can deploy. Trust me, the parachute can deploy. The question is, will it? We're really getting some heat on now. I just hope we don't hit our limits before too long. Parachute should start deploying. There we go. Oh, G-force. This meter by here, by the way, is the G-force meter. We're really maxing out our Gs. Woohoo! And our airspeed is dropping incredibly fast. We just dropped about almost 2 kilometers of airspeed. It's rather impressive, but we are now safe. We've got another 20-something kilometers to drop, but we're now safe. And I did say I was concerned about getting to the desert. I think we're going to be just on the cusp of it, and it's actually going to be a little bit hilly. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hit T to turn off the SAS, because the SAS is actually holding us at a bit of an angle. So take that off, and you can see that we're now just going to orientate ourselves towards the ground, because currently it was holding us at the last pressed location, which was a little bit perpendicular to the ground. Now it's just going wherever it wants to point, and because the parachute's at the top, it's pointing us downwards. So, with that done, we're just going to time warp, and we're going to hit the ground. So we're just going to drop another 15 kilometers, and then our first voyage will be over. So if you've actually managed to follow along this, and it's your first time, and this is your first attempt at orbit, well done. I don't think many people, when they take their very first rocket off, actually manage to go all the way into space, do a complete and proper orbit, and actually come back down. So congratulations. If you didn't manage it first time round, and this is the third attempt at which you've got to this point in the tutorial, don't worry, it happens to the best of us. So, looks like we are coming down in some sort of mountain on the edge of the desert. So I called it right on both accounts. Also wrong on both accounts. By the way, right-clicking parts, you can get a little bit more information. So here we can see that we've used up some electric charge. The stability assistance system uses electric charge. We've also got a lot of other things we can do. So, like, we can turn on and off the reaction wheel, which allows us to do stuff with the SAS. We can do a lot of other things. And I'm going to go into those in more depth in another tutorial. This one's covering the very basics and your very first orbit. So, 500 meters from the ground, this should pop. By the way, in mind, this altitude is a altitude to sea level. This is not sea level. This is a mountainous area on land. It is obviously above sea level. This altitude is lying to you. If you want to see actual altitude, you will have to hit the IVA for one of your Kerbals. There we go. And you'll have to look for... There we go, an altimeter. So here we can see that we're actually getting about 1.5 kilometers. Above sea level. There is one in here that reads not above sea level. Is it over there? I don't know. Huh. I was wrong on that one. Anyway, we're on the ground, and that's what counts. So just bear in mind that sometimes when you're coming down, you're gonna be a little bit higher. And in fact, now we're 1.6 kilometers higher. But I've been EnterElysium, and this has been Kerbal Space Program 101. The very basics, getting to orbit, and then back again. If you've enjoyed, please remember to like, and not subscribe, please consider subscribing. It really helps support the channel, and of course, if you've really enjoyed the tutorial, it might help out other people who need the same sort of help with getting into Kerbal Space Program, because it is a brilliant game, and I'm glad you are now playing it. But until next time, stay shiny. Incidentally, I should note that if you actually want your Kerbals to return to the Kerbal Space Center and be victorious and be like, yeah, we made it to space, guys, you should probably recover your capsule. You can do that a number of ways. You can do it from the Space Center, although I won't go into that. Or you can just go over here, and then you get the recover vessel, and just click that. And then... Finally! Oh, I didn't know if I could hold my breath any longer. You get Valentina, Bill, and Bob back. There we go. Everyone's back. Catch you later, guys.